Hi there. Today I'm going to do a demo of a product that I bought recently to solve a problem that all guitar builders have, which is radiusing the fretboard. I get very bored of using sandpaper in a radiusing block, and so I decided a little while ago to buy the radiusing router jig from Guitars and Woods. And what I'm going to do today is try it out for the first time. I'm not affiliated to or sponsored by Guitars and Woods in any way, just a customer. So I bought this as normal. It came actually missing a couple of these end pieces, so I had to contact them and then they sent them to me without any delay. I thought that they could have packaged it a bit better than they did, and sent them some feedback like that. I know that they have produced an updated version where I think they've corrected the radiuses, because I believe at the moment the radius is, or in the first issue, the radius is done on the jig and gives a slightly different radius than shown on the fretboard itself. I'm not too worried about that. I'm using the 10-inch radius jig because they only had a couple of them available when I bought mine. I really wanted the 12-inch one, but they didn't have it in stock. What I've actually done is I've also made one myself, basically copying what the base of theirs. I haven't tried this out yet, and that will possibly be for a future video. It wasn't too difficult to make. A little bit fiddly, it took a bit of time and it looks a bit of a mess, but hopefully it will work. The reason though was because I find that these things are very expensive for what they actually are. If it works well, then I think it's worth the cost. The expense was exacerbated by the fact that I didn't have a palm router, so I also had to buy the palm router, which is no bad thing because it's a useful thing to have in any case, and I did want to have a second router. I have a normal plunge router too. And then I had problems with the collet, with this Bosch GKF 600. It comes in a UK version and a European version, in Europe obviously, and you need to be careful which one you get. All of my router bits were 1/4 inch shank, which seems to be the most popular size everywhere, and the European version comes with 6 and 8 mm collets, and it's not possible to get a 1/4 inch collet to go on it. In fact, I bought one and it didn't fit because it's only for the UK model, and they have different noses apparently. So that was a complete mess. I wasted money on that and I've had to buy extra router bits. So annoyed with Bosch, although once it's up and running the router seems to be perfectly good. Anyway, that's a little digression. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you my first attempt at getting this to work. I have made a jig for it, which is essentially a copy of the jig on the Guitars and Woods video. So Guitars and Woods have a video also available on YouTube, and I'll put a link to that below, which shows you using it. I'm not going to repeat the instructions in that video for example, mounting this, but I will note you need to make sure that the top part is down so that the edges are touching the base. So you need to adjust that properly. I made the width of the base plate for the fretboard just wide enough to fit inside this gap here, so that there's no play left and right. It's pretty much to the millimetre wide enough. So yeah, I'm going to have a go and we'll see what the results are. So I'm doing this in probably 3 passes or so. I've got my router set up so that it's just touching on the edges about a few millimetres from the edge or something like that. Okay, that was the first pass, and my first observation is that you get a lot of bits flying out from the sides, which hit your hands, so you need to hold the hands a bit higher. I also note that the one thing I added to the jig was this stop at the end, so that there's no way that this can fall off the end and cause problems. I didn't do it at this end because in any case I'm using my clamp here, which effectively acts as a stop as well, but I thought it was a good idea to have that at the other end. Okay, so that was the first pass. Let's lower the bit level and go for the second pass. So far so good. Another thing is that when in the Guitars and Woods video they had an unslotted fretboard. Now I like usually to slot my fretboards when they're still flat, and then I have to go over them again later on, but that's no problem, and so far it looks as if that's not an issue for the radiusing. Now I've positioned the router bit on top of the centre of the fretboard, so this should be the final pass. Right, well I had a centre line drawn down the middle of the fretboard. That has disappeared, so I have just taken a tiny bit off the centre, which is absolutely perfect. I had already got this fretboard down to just over 6mm, and I didn't want to take much more off it. My impression is that this has worked very well. Another advantage of this system is that you're not going to have any problems with getting uneven height on the two sides, because you're working to the base of the jig that you've made. You won't get any unevenness from one side to the other. You won't get any unevenness along the length. Obviously it needs a bit of fine sanding, but that's really all. And because the radius of the fretboard may not be exactly the same as the radius of my sanding blocks, I would probably not even bother to sand this with a radius block, and just sand it with a normal levelling beam or by hand with high grits, because this is already pretty smooth, I have to say. So here's my fretboard, nicely radiused. Final thoughts. I think this is an excellent solution. It's replaced what often takes huge amounts of sanding for me. This is done in 10 minutes or so. The jig is very easy to set up. I made mine a bit short in the end. It's 61cm long, and I would suggest making it closer to 70cm if you're going to be making guitar fretboards. And then what would you need? About 85 or 90 even for bass fretboards. Past that, you need to get it set up right, but once it's set up, very effective, very easy, very quick. As I mentioned earlier, a bit expensive, but overall I think this is a really good solution and I would highly recommend it. So, well done Guitars and Woods. Certainly if you already have a palm router and it's one of the 4 that they support, because they have different base plates that screw into 4 different routers, then barring the cost, I would say this is pretty much a no-brainer. If you don't, then you may have to think twice, but if you are regularly making guitars, then I would say it's definitely worth it. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. I hope this was useful to you, and see you again. Bye.